The gloom. The damp mud. Standing at the window, watching this scene, I shivered. Usually in this kind of weather you want to eat, and sleep. In this regard, I was pleased with the decision to go on a little trip to a mystical place called Kitchen. Why mystical? Yes, at least because you go there supposedly for 5 minutes, and that's it. Consider it gone. You find yourself hours later, sitting at the table and stuffing your stomach with various delicious things. He's been a strong cook. He may have enjoyed it, but he was my only parent, so life had taught him a lot. I don't remember my mother at all. She died when I was 4. According to my father, she drowned in the river in about the same weather, was swept away by the current, and the body was never found. We sat down at the table and dined in silence, each of us thinking about our own things, to the sound of drops hitting the metal roofing like nerves. Cap. Drip. Instincts pulled me to my room, not forgetting to thank my dad for the delicious food. I fell asleep like a baby before I even reached the pillow. That night my father disappeared without a trace. The morning after I discovered his disappearance, the first thing I did was to call the neighbors, asking if he had met them. Person had. Such thoughts visited me, but it should be noted that there was one oddity, or to be more exact, several. The first was that outside the window was the same bad weather, the clouds as if furious continued to pour out their insides, turning the soil into a chugging mess. Well, that's okay. But to go out into such elements, without bothering to put on boots and a raincoat, or a jacket at the very least, was, at the very least, incongruous. All his belongings were left at home, including his cell phone, which is extremely unlike him, as whom I knew and at whom my father could have sagacity, but all to no avail. The seemingly harmless rain was now turning into a real disaster, and with it grew anxiety. Evening crept up imperceptibly, and with it panic, enveloping me more and more. As much as I didn't want to, I had to call the sheriff and report my father's disappearance, even though I knew it would hardly make any difference. I waited for an answer and took in a breath of air and began to tell him what was going on, but he interrupted me without letting me finish. What he said shocked me, and my body was gripped by fear, primal, clammy and cold. A colossal number of goosebumps ran all over my body, and my legs gave out, making me stagger and sit down on the first chair I could find.
Are you all in on this? You're the 7th person to report a missing person today.
That phrase played over and over in my head for several minutes while I sat in the chair and stared at the same spot.
Hello. Hello.
It was coming from the phone, but I didn't react. I was paralyzed. 7 people are missing, I said it out loud, still sitting motionless and with my mouth open. The realization that all this is not for nothing came at once, because even a fool would understand, okay, there is one missing, things happen. But 7, it already smells like hell, no other way. After sitting at the table for some time and being all in thought, I was knocked out unnoticeably for myself. A knock on the window, short, not loud, but distinct, pulled me out of sleep. I thought it was just a branch from a nearby tree, or a branch from a nearby tree had crashed into the window under gusts of wind. But just in case I decided to check. Outside the window was impenetrable darkness, only sometimes lightning flashed, embracing the whole sky, turning it into a huge web and illuminating the area for many kilometers. As you might expect, I could see nothing but darkness. However, when the lightning flashed once again, I was able to see something. Everywhere, and there were many of them. Some were on the road, others near the neighbor's house, a couple of them at my gate. They were just standing still, as if waiting for something. Suddenly one of them leaned against the window. I jumped back in surprise, shrieking like a girl. My heart was pounding like a madman, and it felt like it was about to jump out of my chest and crawl away. When I looked more closely, I could see my father standing in the darkness outside the window, looking out. After a few moments I realized something was wrong. His face, it was different, pale, and his eyes were covered with a white veil. His mouth was twisted horribly, and a red substance oozed from it, reminiscent of blood. He made incomprehensible noises, clacking his jaw and running his palm over the glass, staring at me with his lifeless eyes. Our staring lasted about a minute, and then he started pounding on the glass with his hands and head, smashing his face into meat. Then the others joined him. I was surrounded on all sides, and these devils had managed to climb up to the roof and bang on it with inhuman force. The door was taken out with its hinges, and the windows were all shattered. It would seem that you could go in, but everything stopped in a moment and there was silence. The freaks stood motionless as before, as if they had been unplugged. As for me, I just stood in the middle of the room and watched in horror and didn't even try to do anything. So, what am I gonna do? Well, I'll take a knife, stab one, stab the other, but I won't be enough for all of them, they'll eat me to death. Run away? Where? They were everywhere. I was trapped. As I looked more closely, I began to recognize these creatures as my neighbors and residents of our village. They all looked like my father, just as crooked and ugly. There was a rumble of thunder. The creatures at the threshold slowly parted, making room for her. Soon, a creepy creature appeared where the door used to be. It was a woman, or rather, it had once been a woman. Now it was a walking corpse. In some places there was no flesh, internal organs and bones were visible. The skull was covered with a few tufts of dirty and sticky hair, twisting in all directions in the wind. One eye was missing, replaced by a blackness where worms swarmed. After a short silence, the creature howled like a wolf, and all the crooked ghouls scattered. But not for long. Half a minute later, they started pouring rainwater into my house, trying to get at me. The bastards were using whatever they could get their hands on, be it buckets, ladles, basins or pots. The spray was flying all over the house, and I ran in terror into my room and lurked in the closet, which was in the farthest corner. Now I understood everything, well, almost. Rainwater is a conductor. With its help this creature controls their minds, turning them into obedient dogs, faithfully serving their mistress and obeying any order without discussion. My only question is why they can't come into the house. But I guess I'm not allowed to know that. I've been sitting in the closet for 3 hours. I'm writing all this and I don't know why or why not. There's the same fuss outside, the infected are carrying water like the damned. When will they get tired? There is water dripping everywhere, from walls, ceilings, and on the floor there is a lake. Water is also seeping through the left counter and the closet roof. My legs are numb. I can't write anymore, for my body won't listen at all, and I'm tormented by an overwhelming desire to go outside without fear of getting wet, sick, infected, or dead. I hate the rain.